Welcome back to the deep dive. Property development feasibility studies may not sound like the most exciting topic, but trust me,
Yep.
it's way more interesting than you might think. We're talking potential pitfalls, insider tips, and those aha moments that can save you a ton of money and a whole lot of headaches down the road.
I agree.
And to guide us through this deep dive, we have an article titled How to Choose a Property Development Feasibility Template.
Okay.
It's by Amber Khanna.
Oh, Amber Khanna.
She's a seasoned property developer.
Yeah, I know Amber.
And she's seen it all. She's even created software to help developers like you and me navigate the wild world of feasibility studies.
The wild world, yeah, that's one way to put it.
So
It can be a wild ride.
why are these feasibility studies so crucial?
Well, think about it this way. A
Mhm.
feasibility study is it's like a reality check before you jump headfirst into a project. It helps you avoid building your dream on a foundation of assumptions.
Right, because in property development, assumptions can be really expensive.
Oh, yeah, extremely. You need to test those assumptions with hard data and make sure the numbers actually make sense before you invest your time, your energy, and your money.
It's all about minimizing risk, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Minimizing risk and maximizing reward.
property development has the allure of these really high rewards.
Oh, absolutely it does.
Yeah, but there's also the potential for some serious miscalculations.
Huge miscalculations, yeah. And that's where the feasibility study comes in.
Yeah.
It's like analyzing everything.
Right.
So site selection, construction costs, market demand,
Financing options.
financing. Oh, don't even get me started on financing. It can be a nightmare.
Right.
Oh, it is. And it's about looking at the project from every single angle, identifying those potential roadblocks, and then making data-driven decisions instead of relying on gut feelings or hope or, those back-of-the-napkin calculations.
Yeah, I think everyone's done those back-of-the-napkin calculations at some point.
Of course.
Yeah. And it usually doesn't end well.
Not usually, no.
And Amber, in her article, she shares the story about a 12-townhouse project that she was developing in Melbourne,
Okay.
where a seemingly small mistake almost derailed the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. That's a tough one and a classic mistake.
It is.
She thought she had secured financing. Right.
Yeah.
But then the bank's valuation came in lower than expected. And suddenly, she was required to put up way more equity than she had planned for.
It's like the rug was pulled out from under her.
Yeah, it can feel like that.
And she calls it a naive mistake, but I bet it was incredibly stressful at the time.
Oh, I bet. Especially with the 12-townhouse project. That's not a small undertaking.
Not at all. Can you explain what happened there? What went wrong?
Yeah, it boils down to this thing called bank's TDC. So the total development cost as calculated by the lender, the bank.
Okay.
Turns out banks are often way more conservative in their cost estimate
Dan developed.
than the developer.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this can lead to a significant gap in the funding.
So even if you think you have the financing all figured out,
Yeah.
the bank's calculations can really throw a wrench in the works.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And that is precisely why a detailed funding table is so important. It helps you anticipate those potential funding gaps and avoid those nasty surprises in the middle of the project.
It's like a financial safety net.
Exactly.
So it's not just about securing a loan.
Yeah.
It's about understanding all the nuances of that loan and how it impacts your budget.
Right.
And there's this concept that I found particularly interesting in the article. It's called construction interest reserve.
Oh, yeah, the construction interest reserve.
And many developers, they don't anticipate this cost.
They don't. They really don't.
So can you explain what that is?
Yeah, essentially the bank deducts the estimated interest on that construction loan from the total loan amount
So they're taking out the interest before you even start building.
before you even start building.
Wow.
Yeah, they estimate the total interest that will accrue during construction and deduct it up front.
So that means you have even less money available than you initially thought.
Less money, and that can lead to a pretty significant funding shortfall if you're not careful.
Yeah, that's a detail that you really need to factor into that feasibility study.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where those really robust feasibility templates can really be a lifesaver.
Yeah, I'm starting to see why.
They help you calculate those interest costs accurately and just avoid those nasty surprises down the road.
Now let's talk about land valuation, another potential hurdle that Amber encounters.
Yeah, land valuation, that's a big one.
She talks about this idea of project-related site value, or PRSV,
TRSV, yeah.
and how it can be used strategically by developers.
Right.
So what is that? Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so PRSV, it's commonly used by professional valuers to determine a site's worth, but it's based on its approved development potential. So it takes into account things like GST and VAT, which can be significant.
Okay.
And in Amber's case, she actually challenged a professional valuation using PRSV. Yeah, so she argued that by understanding those components of the PRSV, developers can potentially influence the valuation.
Influence evaluation to their advantage.
To maximize their borrowing power, exactly.
It's like there are these hidden levers that if you know how to use them,
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
you can potentially increase your borrowing capacity.
Absolutely. And it's not just about accepting the valuation at face value. It's about understanding the methodology and potentially negotiating a more favorable outcome, you know?
Yeah. So let's talk about cash flow, because cash flow is the lifeblood of any development project.
Well, it is. Cash is king, right?
Cash is king. And Amber introduces this concept of S-curve distributions to help us visualize and manage cash flow.
Yeah, I like the S-curve. It's a great tool. It's a mathematical tool that really helps you project your cash flow over time.
So it shows you how costs are likely to be incurred throughout the project.
Yeah, and it takes into account all the different stages of development.
So you can see those peaks and valleys in spending, which is really helpful for planning.
Right, because costs are rarely spread evenly throughout a project.
That's true. So how can developers actually use this S-curve in their decision-making?
Okay, so the S-curve helps you anticipate those periods of high spending and ensure you have the funds available. It also helps you calculate your interest cost more accurately since you only pay interest on the portion of the loan that you've actually used, what you've drawn down.
Right. So it's like having a financial roadmap for your project.
A roadmap, I like that, exactly.
And a good feasibility template, it should allow you to customize that S-curve, right?
It should, definitely, because not every project is the same. Not every
Yeah.
project follows the same spending pattern.
So you can adjust it to account for things like the pace of construction,
Yeah.
material deliveries, or any other factors that might influence your cash flow.
Absolutely. It's about having a tool that's flexible enough to reflect the reality of your project.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Oh, good.
I'm starting to see why Amber's so passionate about these feasibility studies.
Oh, yeah, she is. She's very passionate about it. I've talked to her about it.
And I'm starting to share that passion.
Oh, good.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, though,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about those specific features that she recommends we look for in a good feasibility template.
Okay, so based on her experience, there are a few key features. A truly effective template should have quick assessment capability.
Quick assessment capabilities.
Yeah, so you can get like a high-level understanding of the project's viability early on.
Sure, it's like a gut check.
It's a gut check with data, though. Don't forget the
But it's
data.
a check with data.
Gut check with data, exactly. You don't want to spend hours inputting all this data only to realize that the project isn't worth pursuing.
Right. And then there's the integrated funding table that we've already talked about.
Yes, crucial. Crucial for anticipating those funding gaps and avoiding surprises. And of course, it should include those all-important construction interest reserve calculations.
Right, so you're not caught off guard by that upfront interest deduction.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
So those are the must-haves.
Yeah,
But there are also some additional features that are really helpful.
depending on your investment strategy, right?
Right.
So a truly versatile template, it should offer both develop and hold and buy and hold analysis options. This allows you to assess the viability of either selling those developed units right away
Okay.
or holding on to them as long-term investments.
Okay, so you have flexibility
Yeah,
depending on what your goals are.
it's about having options because there's no one-size-fits-all approach to real estate investment. What works for one investor might not work for another.
And that brings us to another tool that Amber talks about, smart real estate investment analysis.
SMART, R-E-I-A. Oh, yeah. SMART, R-E-I-A. I love that acronym.
It sounds pretty fancy.
It does sound fancy. It is pretty cool.
How is it different from a traditional property valuation?
So a traditional valuation, it really just focuses on the current market value of a property. SMART, R-E-I-A goes a step further. It delves into that future income that property could potentially generate. So it helps you determine the true worth of an investment based on its long-term earning potential.
Okay, so we've covered feasibility templates,
Mhm.
smart REIA, both sound like essential tools.
Oh, they are?
But what about people who might be feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this information? What advice do you have for them?
I would say remember knowledge is power. The more you understand these tools, the better equipped you'll be to actually navigate those complexities of property development.
And there are a lot of resources out there, right?
Or there are. There are tons of resources, like Amber software, for example.
Right.
It's designed to make these complex calculations more accessible, even for people who aren't financial wizards.
So you don't have to be a financial expert to use these tools effectively.
Not at all. And don't underestimate the power of community.
Oh, community is so important.
It is. Connecting with other developers, sharing experiences, learning from each other's successes
The failure.
and failures, it's incredibly valuable.
It's like having that support system, right?
Yeah, it is. A network of people who understand the challenges and the rewards.
Speaking of Amber, she shared some great anecdotes in her article.
Oh, she does. She does.
Like that story about the infinite loop that developers can get stuck in when they're trying to calculate total development costs, interest, and maximum debt.
Yeah, that's a classic one.
Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Sure. So it all starts with that total development cost, the TDC. It includes all the expenses associated with the project,
Okay.
but then it also includes the interest on that construction loan.
Right, because you're borrowing money to build.
Yeah, exactly. And that borrowed money, it comes with an interest cost. But here's where it gets tricky. That total interest cost is calculated based on the maximum debt that the bank's willing to lend you.
So the more you borrow, the higher the interest cost.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the catch. That maximum debt that's often calculated based on the bank's loan-to-cost ratio, which is a percentage of
The total development
of a total development cost.
Yeah.
So it becomes this circular calculation.
A financial riddle.
Right, like where do you even start? But this is where those robust feasibility templates come in handy.
They help you solve the riddle.
They do. They handle those complex calculations behind the scenes, ensuring accuracy and consistency.
So you can focus on the strategic decisions, not just the calculations themselves.
Exactly.
It's about using technology to make your life easier and your projects more successful.
100%. You got it.
Speaking of technology, Amber also emphasizes the importance of customizing your feasibility template to reflect those unique characteristics of your project.
Oh, yeah. Because no two projects are identical.
Right. One size fits all doesn't really apply to property development?
It does not. Every project has its own challenges, its own opportunities, its own kind of financial rhythm.
So what are some of the key areas where customization is especially important?
Okay, so first, tailor those cost centers to reflect your specific project needs. So Amber emphasizes using terminology that aligns with your understanding of the project. It's about speaking the same language, ensuring the template actually reflects your way of thinking.
Okay, so make the template work for you.
Yeah, exactly. Don't try to fit yourself into a box that doesn't work for you.
Right.
And then you have those tax codes like GST and VAT,
Yeah?
which can vary depending on your location
Your location and the type of project.
and the type of project.
So having a template that allows you to adjust those percentages is crucial.
It is,
Yeah.
because those taxes can really eat into your bottom line if you're not careful. So it's all about accuracy.
What other customization options should developers be aware of?
Let's see. Well, you want to make sure the currency symbol is correct, right?
Especially with international projects.
Especially if you're dealing with international projects. It seems like a small detail. But getting these small things right can prevent a lot of confusion and errors down the line.
Mm.
And then, of course, there's that S-curve that we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to adjust the steepness of that curve
Okay.
to reflect the unique cost incurrence rates of your specific project. Because some projects might have like a gradual ramp up of costs.
Yeah.
Others might have more intense periods of spending. So having that flexible template allows you to adjust that curve.
So it reflects the reality of your
It's
project.
the reality, exactly. You got it.
And let's not forget about the entrepreneurial margin for profit and risk.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. It's about having a deep understanding of those seemingly technical concepts
Right.
and being able to make strategic decisions that actually impact your bottom line.
It's about knowing the rules of the game
Exactly.
and using that knowledge to your advantage.
You got it.
Now, before we wrap up this section,
Yeah.
let's talk about the develop and hold and buy and hold analysis options.
Yeah. So this is crucial for investors and developers who are considering different exit strategies.
Mm.
Do they want to sell those developed units right away? Or does it make more sense financially to hold on to them as long-term investments?
So you need to analyze those two scenarios differently.
You do, because they have very different financial considerations.
Okay.
So a develop and hold analysis, it focuses on factors like rental income,
Okay.
operating expenses,
The potential appreciation.
appreciation, exactly. A buy and hold analysis, it looks at that long-term value of an existing property,
Okay.
and it considers things like market trends, potential renovations, and all that.
So it's about having the tools to explore those different scenarios and
Yeah.
make the best decision based on your goals and your risk tolerance.
Exactly. There is no one-size-fits-all.
Well said. This has been a really fascinating exploration of property development feasibility, and I think we've laid a really strong foundation.
I think so too.
But now I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the role of technology in this field. It feels like we're on the cusp of some major shifts, especially with all this talk about AI and these powerful GPT models that everyone's talking about.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other level. It's an exciting time to be involved in property development. AI is changing the game in so many ways.
So how's it actually being used today in property development? Give us some specific examples.
Well, we talked about how AI is making those feasibility studies more accessible, but it goes so much deeper than that. Imagine using AI algorithms to analyze those vast amounts of data, market trends, demographic shifts, even social media sentiment,
Right.
to identify the most promising development opportunities.
That's like having a digital crystal ball.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
It can feel like that. These AI models can process information at a speed and scale that's just impossible for humans to do.
It's mind-boggling.
And they can uncover those hidden patterns, the potential risks that we might miss.
So it's not just about crunching numbers.
No, it's not. It's about understanding the nuances of the market and making predictions based on that complex data analysis.
And AI is not just involved in finding the right opportunities.
Right.
It's also being used to optimize the development process itself.
Yes, absolutely. You can use AI to refine building designs,
Okay.
to improve energy efficiency,
Wow.
even personalize those marketing campaigns to target specific buyers.
So AI is involved in every stage of the process?
Every stage, from start to finish. It's a really holistic approach to property development.
But it's important to remember that AI is a tool.
It is a tool,
Yeah.
and it needs to be used responsibly.
We can't just blindly trust the algorithms, right?
Oh, absolutely not. We need to understand their limitations
And their potential biases.
and biases, yeah.
Yeah.
Be aware of the data that they're trained on and make sure that it's representative and unbiased. We also need to be transparent about how these algorithms are making decisions.
Accountability is important.
Accountability is key, so we can hold them accountable.
It's about using AI as a partner, not a replacement for human judgment.
Exactly.
So we need to combine the power of AI with our own knowledge and experience.
Yeah, to make the best possible decisions for our projects.
And I think that's a great place to pause for a moment. When we come back, we'll continue exploring the intersection of AI and property development.
Sounds good to me. I'm ready to dive back in.
Me too. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before the break, we were talking about smart REIA and how it's different from a traditional property valuation.
Right. Traditional valuations, they just focus on the current market value, what a property's worth today.
Today, yeah.
Smart REIA takes it a step further.
Okay.
It looks at the potential future income a property could generate.
So it's about the earning potential of the property.
Exactly. It helps you figure out the true worth of an investment based on its long-term earning potential, not just what it's worth today.
I see. So it takes into account things like potential rent increases and appreciation.
Exactly. All those things that can affect the value over time.
And that makes it really useful when you're comparing different investment opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. Like imagine you're trying to decide between, say, a condo in a bustling city center
Okay.
versus a single-family home out in the suburbs.
Tough choice.
Right. Two very different properties, but Smart REIA can help you compare them side by side.
So you can see which one is likely to perform better financially.
Precisely. It takes the guesswork out of it, You can make data-driven decisions
That's what we like, data-driven decisions.
based on solid projections.
So we've talked about feasibility templates, we've talked about Smart REA, both incredibly valuable tools.
For sure.
But for someone who's just starting out in property development, it can feel a bit overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when I first started out, it was like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, there's so much to learn.
So much to learn. And it's constantly changing.
So any advice for those who are just starting out and maybe feeling a little lost?
Well, I would say, first of all, don't get discouraged. It's a steep learning curve, but it's definitely doable. And the rewards can be huge,
Yeah, the rewards are definitely there.
They are. And remember, knowledge is power in this business.
Knowledge is power, so keep learning.
Keep learning. Read books, attend seminars, network with other developers.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Oh yeah, ask all the questions. There are no stupid questions.
And speaking of questions,
Yeah.
I have one for you. Amber, in her article, she mentions this concept of the infinite loop
Oh, the infinite loop.
that developers can get stuck in when they're trying to figure out those total development costs, interest, and maximum debt.
Yeah, that's a classic one. It can really trip people up.
Can you break it down for us?
Sure. So it all starts with that total development cost, right? The TDC.
Includes all the expenses associated with the project?
Everything. Land, construction, professional fees, you name it.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. The TDC also includes the interest on the construction loan.
Right, because you're borrowing money to build.
Exactly. And that borrowed money comes with an interest cost, which gets added to the TDC. But the thing is, the total interest cost, that's calculated based on the maximum debt the bank's willing to lend.
Okay, so the more you borrow,
The higher the interest.
the higher the interest. Got it.
But here's the catch. That maximum debt, that's often based on the bank's loan-to-cost ratio, which is a percentage of
Wait, the total development cost?
the total development cost. So you see where the loop comes in.
It's a circular calculation.
Totally circular. The TDC includes the interest cost, which is based on the maximum debt, which is based on the TDC.
It's enough to make your head spin.
It is. But don't worry, there's a way out of this loop.
Please tell me there is.
There is. This is where those robust feasibility templates that we keep talking about, they really shine.
They can cut through that complexity.
Exactly. They handle all those calculations behind the scenes, making sure everything's accurate and consistent.
So you don't have to pull your hair out trying to figure it all out manually.
You can focus on the big picture, the strategic decisions.
That's what technology is all about, right? Making our lives easier.
It should be. And speaking of technology, Amber also stresses the importance of customizing that feasibility template to fit your specific project.
Because every project's different.
Every single one is unique.
So one size fits all just doesn't work.
Nope, not in property development.
So where should developers focus their customization efforts? What are the key areas?
Well, first of all, those cost centers.
Okay, cost center.
You got to tailor them to reflect your project's needs. Amber's a big advocate for using terminology that makes sense to you,
Makes sense.
It's about speaking the same language as your template.
So you're on the same page.
Exactly. Then you've got those tax codes, GST, VAT, all that fun stuff.
Always a joy.
Oh yeah, love those taxes. But they vary depending on where you are, what kind of project you're doing.
So make sure your template can handle those variations.
Absolutely. And don't forget about something as simple as the currency symbol.
Oh yeah, especially if you're working internationally.
Easy to overlook, but important to get right.
Can save you a lot of headaches later on.
Absolutely. And then there's that S curve we talked about earlier.
Right, the cash flow curve.
You want to be able to adjust how steep that curve is.
Right, to match the pace of spending on your project.
Exactly. Some projects ramp up gradually, others have these intense bursts of spending.
So flexibility is key.
It's all about having a template that can dance to the rhythm of your project.
I like that analogy. And let's not forget about that entrepreneurial margin for profit and risk.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
It's all about understanding those levers.
And knowing how to use them.
To your advantage. Exactly.
Now, before we move on, I want to touch on those develop and hold versus buy and hold analysis options.
Right. Those are important for investors and developers who are thinking about their exit strategy.
So do you sell those units right away?
Or hold on to them as investments.
Two very different paths.
They are. And you need to analyze them differently.
Okay, so how do those analyses differ?
Well, a develop and hold analysis that focuses on things like rental income,
Okay, rental income.
operating expenses, potential appreciation, all those things that come with owning a property.
Got it.
A buy and hold analysis that looks at the long-term value of an existing property, market trends, potential renovations,
So it's about having the flexibility to explore both options.
and choose the one that aligns with your goals and your risk tolerance.
Because there's no right or wrong answer, it all depends on your individual situation.
Precisely. It's about finding what works best for you.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful dive into property development feasibility. We've covered so much ground.
We have.
But before we wrap things up completely,
Yeah?
I'm curious to hear your final thoughts on the role of technology in this field. It's clear that AI is having a huge impact.
It is. And it's only going to get bigger.
So what does the future hold for property development in the age of AI?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Okay.
We're already seeing AI being used for things like site selection, design optimization, even predicting market trends.
Yeah. It's amazing how much data these AI models can process.
It's mind-blowing. And they can find patterns that we humans would never even think to look for.
It's like having a superpowered research assistant.
I like that. And as these models get even smarter, who knows what they'll be able to do.
It's exciting and a little bit scary at the same time.
I know, right? But I think the key is to approach it with a sense of curiosity and a willingness to learn.
And to remember that AI is a tool.
It's a tool. A powerful tool, but still just a tool.
We need to use it wisely and ethically.
Absolutely. And we need to stay ahead of the curve, keep learning and adapting as these technologies evolve.
Because the future of property development is going to be shaped by those who can harness the power of AI.
Without losing sight of the human element.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive.
It has been a fascinating journey.
We've covered a lot of ground, but I hope our listeners have gained a deeper understanding of property development feasibility and the role that technology is playing in shaping this dynamic field.
I hope so too. And remember, knowledge is power.
Keep learning, stay curious, and don't be afraid to embrace the future of property development.
Well said. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before the break, we were really getting into the exciting world of AI and how it's shaking up property development.
Yeah, like AI's everywhere these days, isn't it?
It really is, and it's transforming industries left and right, and property development is no exception.
Definitely not. It's changing the game, I think, for the better.
So let's dig a little deeper into how AI is actually being used today in the world of property development. What are some concrete examples?
Well, we talked about feasibility studies, right?
Right.
And how AI is making those more user-friendly. But it goes way beyond that. Imagine using these AI algorithms to analyze huge amounts of data like market trends,
Demographic shift.
even stuff from social media,
Wow.
to actually pinpoint those really promising development opportunities.
So it's like having a crystal ball that can predict the future of real estate.
Kinda, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
that, but it's based on data. It's not magic.
Right, of course. Data-driven crystal ball. So these AI models can process information on a scale that would just be impossible for humans, right?
Oh, absolutely. Way faster and more efficiently, too.
So they can see things, those hidden patterns and risks that we humans might completely miss.
Exactly. It's like having an extra set of eyes, but these eyes can see through tons of data.
So it's not just about crunching numbers, it's really about understanding the nuances of the market and making those smart predictions based on this data.
Right. And it's not just about finding the right opportunities either. AI can help optimize the whole development process.
Oh, interesting. Okay. How so?
Well, think about refining building designs,
Okay.
improving energy efficiency,
Wow.
and even tailoring those marketing campaigns to specific buyer demographics.
So it's like AI is involved in every step of the journey, from start to finish.
Yeah, it's a really holistic approach.
But with all this talk about AI, I think it's important to remember that it's still just a tool, right?
It is a tool. And like any tool, it has its limitations.
And it can be misused.
Exactly. We can't just blindly trust those algorithms.
So we need to be aware of potential biases.
Definitely. We need to make sure those algorithms are trained on good representative data, and we need to be transparent about how they work.
So we can understand those decisions they're making.
We'll hold them accountable.
So really, it's about using AI as a partner.
A partner, yeah. Not a replacement for human judgment.
And that means combining that power of AI with our own knowledge and experience.
To make smart, ethical decisions.
And I think that's a really important point to emphasize. We can't just hand over the reins to AI and expect everything to work out perfectly.
No, we need to stay involved, stay informed, and use AI to augment our own capabilities.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into property development feasibility. It's been an incredibly insightful conversation, and I hope our listeners have learned a lot about this fascinating field.
I hope so too. It's a field that's constantly evolving, especially with the rise of AI, so it's an exciting time to be involved.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, remember, knowledge is power in this business, so keep learning, stay curious, and don't be afraid to embrace those new technologies that can help you succeed.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the ideas that shape our world.